Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to talk about calcium regulation. So why do we want to talk about calcium regulation? Because calcium is the most abundant electrolyte in our body, and the regulation of calcium is also tightened with other electrolyte regulation. It implies multiple processes. And also calcium acts as an hormone, second messenger. It helps with the muscle contraction. It also helps as a second messenger, and it constitutes most of the component of our teeth and bones. So it's important that we actually understand its homeostasis. So the normal level of calcium, and this is going to be different according to hospital and books, but what we use for calcium, the normal level will be 8.5 to 10.5 milligram per deciliters. So for the purpose of this video, when I'm talking about low calcium, it's going to be level below 8.5, and hypercalcemia is going to be above 10.5. So there are three main hormones that regulate the calcium level into our body. Two of these hormones are going to be upregulating, and one hormone, only one, is going to decrease the level of calcium in our body through multiple systems. So let's talk about the upregulation, and then we're going to go over the downregulation of calcium, and we're going to see the signs and symptoms and how we can treat it. So upregulation of calcium. So the upregulation of calcium is going to be done by the PTH, which is also called parathormone, secreted by our parathyroid, and the vitamin D. And for the downregulation of calcium, we talk about only one hormone secreted by the thyroid, which is going to be the calcitonin. So let's go over the PTH and the vitamin D and see how they help upregulate our level of calcium in the body. So when we have a low level of calcium, the parathormone, which secretes the PTH, is going to sense that, oh, low level of calcium. So the parathormone is going to increase. The parathyroid is going to increase the level of the parathormone in our body. Now the parathormone is going to act through three main mechanisms. So it's going to act in the kidneys, it's going to act in the bones, and it's going to act in the GI tract, into our intestine. So in the kidneys, it's going to favor the reabsorption of calcium. So to make sure the kidney don't excrete or flush out the calcium. And this is going to be done into the distal tubule. So increase reabsorption of calcium. And why it does that, it's going to excrete the phosphorus. So it's going to be a dual mechanism. So while it favors the reabsorption of calcium, the phosphate is going to go out. It's going to be excreted. But I'm going to upload a video talking about the phosphate homeostasis. So if you're interested, you can also check that video out. So on the bones, the parathormone is going to have an indirect effect on the bones, because it's in the bones we have two main cells. We have the cell that make up the bones, and we have the cell that breaks down the bone. So the cell that make up the bone are called osteoblasts, and the cell that breaks down the bones are called osteoclasts. So when these cells breaks down the bones, because majority of the bone is made of calcium, they're going to release calcium into the blood, increasing our level of calcium. But when these cells make up the bone, they're going to pick up the calcium of the blood and decrease the calcium level. So it's important that we understand the function of these cells. So when I say the parathormone is gonna act indirectly on the bone, the parathormone is gonna bind to this osteoblast, and these osteoblasts are gonna stimulate this osteoclast, and these osteoclasts are going to release the calcium, increases our level of calcium. So the indirect action is because it binds to the maker of the bone, to the osteoblast, but actually the end of result is the activation of the osteoclast to release the calcium into the blood, which gives us more calcium. So in the bone, increase activity of osteoclast indirectly. Now, let's go over the GI tract. In the GI tract, the parathormone is also going to act indirectly with the vitamin D. So what it's going to do when we have ingestion of vitamin D, it comes in an inactive form. So there are a couple of enzymes which are involved in the transformation of vitamin D to the active form that is actually working in our body. So the parathormone is going to speed up those enzymes to convert the vitamin D into its active form. That will help to reabsorb more calcium into the GI tract. So here we're going to see increased level of active form of vitamin D, which is going to increase the level of calcium into the blood. So this is the mechanism that really upregulate the level of calcium. Now let's talk about what actually downregulate the level of calcium, and we said it was only one hormone, which is the calcitonin secreted by our thyroid gland. So here we have down regulation. And it's also only going to be calcitonin. So the calcitonin is going to interfere with all the action of the parathormone at these three different organs. So it's going to decrease the level of calcium. So here, if we have a high calcium level, increased secretion of calcitonin. And now calcitonin is going to act on the kidneys to inhibit the reabsorption of calcium so the kidney can excrete the calcium out. So they're going to inhibit reabsorption of calcium. And it's going to also act on the bones. Now remember, we said the osteoblasts use the calcium from the blood to make up the bone, leading to a low calcium level. So they're going to enhance the action of osteoblasts. So they're going to stimulate osteoblast to pick up that extra calcium from the blood, and they're going to inhibit the osteoclast, the breaker of the bones, to release the calcium. Remember, osteoclast breaks the bone down to release the calcium into the blood. So they're going to inhibit osteoclast. Now the GI tract, they're simply going to inhibit the reabsorption of calcium. They are not going to act with the vitamin D. So inhibit calcium reabsorption. So now that we understand the mechanism that upregulate calcium and the mechanism that downregulate calcium, now we can go to what can actually cause low, high calcium, what are the symptoms, and how can we treat it, right? So let's talk about low calcium. So what are the mechanisms involved in low calcium? In order to have a low calcium, it could be from the diet. Maybe we are not getting enough calcium in our diet. So it could be from the diet. It could be from the lack of exposure to the vitamin D deficiency. It could be that there is a problem with our PTH. Maybe we have a hypoparathyroidism, or we have a surgery that has to remove our parathyroid hormone. So decrease level of parathyroid through surgery or hypoparathyroidism. If we have kidneys that don't function properly to reabsorb the calcium, we can have low calcium level. So renal insufficiency. If we have our GI tract, if we have like malabsorption syndrome, like everything we eat just flush out and stuff like that, we can also have a decrease in our level of calcium. GI malabsorption. Now I want to say also, if we have hypomagnesemia, if we have low magnesium into our body, this could also decrease the level of calcium. And how is this done? So in order to secrete PTH, magnesium is needed. So magnesium favors the secretion of PTH. So if we don't have enough magnesium, we don't have enough PTH, so all the system is going to be broken down. So yes, in situation of hypomagnesemia, we can also have low level of calcium. And I want to also add in alkalosis. In alkalosis, we can also have low level of calcium. And how does this work? So with calcium is a little bit different, because only the free calcium, the ionized calcium, is the active form of the calcium in our body. It's the calcium that actually works in our body. So in our body, we have this large protein called albumin, which likes to bind with calcium here, especially during alkalosis. When the pH is high, albumin likes to bind to calcium. Now we said it's only the free calcium that is the active form of calcium into our body. So if we have alkalosis, we have all these calcium binding to albumin. If we do a lab sample of the total serum calcium, it's going to show a normal level because all the calcium is there. But if we actually try to know what is the free portion of the calcium, the ionized portion of the calcium is going to be decreased, because all this calcium is binding into the albumin in the presence of a high pH. So this is why in alkalosis we can have a decrease in the level of our free calcium, although the total serum calcium is going to be normal. So now that we have reviewed the situation that can give us a decrease in calcium, what are the signs and symptoms of a decrease in calcium? So if we have hypocalcemia, signs and symptoms. So normally calcium inhibits the sodium in the action potential. So if we have here our membrane action potential right here, and we saw that at the depolarization phase, this is the phase where calcium enter, making the cell more positive and depolarizing the cell. So calcium inhibits this sodium from entering into the membrane. So if you have a low calcium, you have a high level of this sodium entering into the membrane, favoring the excitation. So everything is going to be excited into the body. So in the presence of low calcium, we're going to have high sodium influx into the membrane, leading to excitation. So all the membrane are going to be easily excitable. And how is this going to transfer into our body system is that we're going to have high reflexes. So our reflexes, hypersensitivity. We also going to have high like spasm, and the muscle spasm can be everywhere. We can have bronchospasm, laryngospasm, dysphagia. These are all explained by the high sodium influxes during the depolarization of the action potential. So we're gonna have spasm, and also we're gonna have our favorite sign, the Trousseau sign and the Schwartz sign. So the Trousseau sign is when you have a blood pressure cuff inflated and you have the wrist going into a flexion like this. That's a Trousseau sign. And the Schwartz sign. Schwartz signs is when you tap just right here in front of the ears and you have this tingling right here, these twitches on your face on the same side, and that's the Schwartz sign. So all this excitation is marked because the calcium being low, more sodium get into the cell, easily depolarizing the cell, conducting to contraction. So these are the signs and symptoms that we can have. So, and how do we treat? We have low calcium, we give calcium, right? If the cause is due to the low vitamin D, we give vitamin D. If it's due to the parathormone not working, we try to repair it. So this is how we're gonna actually treat our low calcium level. Now that we review the decrease in calcium level, let's talk about what can cause an increase in our serum calcium. So things that can increase our serum calcium, now, is if your calcitonin is not present, that inhibitory process, if you have like thyroid deficiency and your calcitonin is not properly secreted, that can increase your calcium level. Thyroid deficiency. And also, if you have a diet that is really rich in calcium, you can also have that. And also metastasis. We have some cancer that are gonna produce some kind of protein that will act just like parathormone, that is gonna lead to high calcium level. We also have like kidney stone, which can also be like high calcium level. And if your kidneys are deficiency to excrete some part of the calcium, you can also have high calcium level. So now, what are the signs and symptoms when we have a high calcium level? How do we know? It's gonna be the same principle that we say. Normally, calcium inhibits the sodium influx into the action potential phase and leading to less excitation. So if I have a high level of calcium, that inhibition is gonna be high, and if I inhibit the sodium entry into that phase of the action potential, I have less depolarization and my membrane are less excitable. So I'm gonna have here decrease in sodium influx, which is gonna lead to stuff like headache because I have so much high calcium, lethargy. Everything is gonna be kind of slow. Lethargy, constipation. I have a slow motility in my GI. And also on the EKG, I'm gonna have a short QT. Remember, the influx is not going appropriately. It's kind of slow, so my QT is gonna be short. And also on my EKG, I'm gonna have this wave called the Osborne wave, and it's gonna look like this. It's just right like a second hour wave, which is with a less amplitude than the normal hour wave here. And this is a characteristic of a high calcium level that you can see on the EKG. And all this is due to less sodium influx. Everything just kind of slow down the membrane and not that sensitive to the excitation. So, and with a high calcium level, how are we treating? So if your calcium is high, remember we said in the kidney, the parathormone is going to reabsorb the calcium and excrete the phosphate, because calcium and phosphate have inverse relationship. So if I have high calcium, I have low phosphate through the parathormone. So if I want my calcium to decrease, I just have to give the person more phosphate, right? So give the patient more phosphate. And also you can give the patient biphosphonate. Biphosphonate are going to help the osteoclast not release a lot of calcium. So they're going to bind into the osteoclast, inhibit the osteoclast not to produce enough calcium. So, and also you can give them diuretic like thiazide diuretic. They also help with the excretion of calcium. So I hope this was really helpful understanding the basic of the calcium regulation. I am going to upload the video about the phosphate regulation because they are tied together, both their regulation. So if you find this interesting, please like, share, and subscribe, and look out for my video on the phosphate regulation. And thank you so much.